Peopoly's Magneto X arrived to a lot of attention thanks to its linear motors. It truly was something different. But is it actually a good 3D printer? Today we examine a vast range of testing to find out the answer and to see who it's best suited for. Myself and a lot of other people were really excited when the Magneto X was announced, and because of that, this is actually my third video, with the first being an inside look into providing feedback as part of the testing team. I've now been using the production version for many months and gathered enough data for an in-depth review. The only trouble is, it's been complicated. Let's start with a quick recap of Peopoly's Magneto X. This 3D printer is meant to retail for $2,000 US, but has been on sale for $1,600 for a while now. The biggest point of difference compared to other printers is that it does away with stepper motors, pulleys and belts in favour of linear motors. This should give an advantage in print speed, acceleration and closed loop out of the box, meaning any errors can be corrected in real time. If you want to learn much more about exactly how these motors work, as well as seeing them tested to their limits in terms of the claimed speed and acceleration, I've got a dedicated deep dive video linked below. The Magneto X has its own extruded design called the Lancer. It has some big claims for peak flow rate, and the nozzles are hardened steel from factory. There's also a load cell built in which is used for auto bed leveling. Another key feature is the large build volume, which is 400 by 300 by 300 millimeters. Orca Slicer is the slicer of choice, and the firmware is Clipper, using the mainsail web interface, and these are unmodified versions, which is great. Finally, we have a large 7-inch touch display running Clipper screen. This printer has been provided to me free of charge by Peopoly for the purposes of making a review, and it has been reviewed in accordance with my review policy. In terms of the review, there are some specific areas I was focusing on. I was initially excited about this printer because it looked to have the polish of something from Bamboo Lab, but then all of the software and firmware is open source and customizable. So does it just work, or is it more for tinkerers? Secondly, lately, Peopoly has been pivoting this machine to something capable of making engineering parts, showcasing a series of examples on their Discord. So we'll try and decide if it is good for that. And thirdly, this review has been about moving goalposts, which you will soon see. On to unboxing, and this is one huge and heavy box. Everything was packed well and arrived without any damage. And immediately, compared to the prototype printer, I could see where things had improved. For instance, the bed now shipped unattached, and assembly now required it being installed into the correct position and fastened with these bolts. There's also now covers for the electronics underneath and the mains powered heated bed, and the antenna design that snapped in shipping for the prototype was replaced by this much more slimline version. Also new was this very brief quick start guide with only 4 pages included. But that's okay, because the online wiki setup guide is extremely comprehensive, going through every step in great detail. After firing up the printer and connecting it to Wi-Fi, it became instantly apparent that something was wrong. One of the linear motors was extremely noisy. Software fixes didn't work, so instead I was sent a new linear motor driver. This was a little bit involved and fiddly to fit, but good instructions were provided and I got there and managed to fix the problem. So on to fitting the enclosure. And I'm pleased to report that the production version of the enclosure is much better than the prototype one I tested earlier. The first enclosure dimensionally was a little bit off, which made it bulge and leave gaps in many places. But the new panels are spot on, fit snugly, meaning there's no gaps anywhere around the printer. Previously, the acrylic on the lid was free to wobble, but now we have these printed pieces that lock it in place and make the whole thing feel more solid. With the touch display in the standard position, there was also this gap in the door to allow for the cords, which is not good for filaments that can warp. So this time around, I mounted the screen in the higher position with the solid door, but as you can see, the cords need rerouting. In the enclosure roof, there's some holes provided for this, but as you can see, they're too small for the plugs to go through. Therefore, I was required to do some problem solving with a Dremel tool, which somehow I didn't completely butcher, and after moving the 2 cables into a closer port at the bottom, I managed to just make them reach the touchscreen. Further modification was required to drill a hole on the right hand side of the lid, so I could also swap one of the vertical extrusions and mount the filament on the right hand side of the machine where it wouldn't be jamming into the wall. Every time I wanted to get on with reviewing this printer, the goalposts were moved by new parts being sent out. This included a new bed that was apparently improved with reinforced corners, a new filament runout sensor piece with CNC machined housing and new buttons, and a new load cell and part cooling fan mounting system, which used magnets in combination with metal strips on the back of the duct that allow the ducts to very quickly change height, and this is needed because the printer comes with multiple hot ends of different lengths if you want to do some higher flow, large nozzle work, which is a nice touch. This and the new filament runout module with its clearly labelled buttons and status LED are clear improvements, but there was some work to get them fitted, including printing the ducts yourself and undertaking some fairly minor assembly. In response to some intermittent under extrusion, Peopoly then shipped me this larger internal diameter Bowden tube to reduce friction, which I combined with this filament roller by Mitchell Ellisor to move the filament spool to the top of the lid, so I could keep the reverse Bowden tube path as short as possible, which has worked well. During my review, I lost a series of long overnight prints due to false filament runout detections. By the time I got to them in the morning, the bed and the motors had both been turned off. To combat this, Peopoly emailed me an updated filament runout G-code sequence that implemented a double check with debouncing. This 100% fixed the problem, but I should note that at the time, it wasn't publicly available on the GitHub for Peopoly. And that is exactly what I mean by moving goalposts. A couple of points. Everything that Peopoly has done to update this printer has definitely improved it, either in terms of function or reliability. However, if this many loose ends still needed tidying up, then I think it's fair to say that it was just released too early and needed more testing before it went to production. In these cases, often early users are left behind, but I'm pleased to report that Peopoly has been shipping out upgrade kits so the earliest customers could catch up. Not ideal, but a good resolution. So how does it print? The first thing to note is that Orca Slicer has support for the Magneto X built in. All we need to do is tick our nozzle size and then click confirm. Following that, you'll input your local IP address and save a variation of the printer with this included. In terms of print profiles, we have from 0.16 through to extra draft 0.28, and then there's two specific profiles for ABS glass fiber and PETG carbon fiber. In terms of filament presets, it's a little bit limited. For filament profiles, there's variations for ABS, PETG and PLA, but I'm a little bit surprised to find nothing for TPU or nylon. Let me start this section by explaining that I had to do a lot of slicer tuning on top of these profiles. Things like hot end temperature weren't bad with a wide range of usable values, but things like pressure advance were particularly sensitive compared to other printers. Normally I would tune once for a particular type of filament and use that value for various colors. But on this printer, if I tried that, the results varied quite a bit. We can see here 3 different colors of PETG, all requiring their own unique values. The other thing that gave me trouble was the maximum flow rates in the default slicing profiles. For the composite materials, these are around 35 mm cubed per second, and for the standard materials, they range from 18 up to 22 mm cubed per second, and I found these generally way too optimistic. For instance, here's an Orca Slicer flow test for PETG, going from 0 to 30, and the extrusion's only consistent to about halfway up. And then the same test on their PETG carbon fiber, and I stopped it because extrusion broke down about halfway through. Therefore, for all of my customized profiles, I ended up putting a limit of 15 mm cubed per second, aiming to be better safe than sorry. There were some things that were much harder to tune and only popped up from time to time, one of those being inconsistent layer stacking. At its worst, this presented as full-on Z banding, with the stripes repeating at very regular intervals. But then I could print with the exact same filament and profile, a banding test tower, and the problem would no longer be present. I sent the model to Peopoly for them to try. As you can see, no Z banding, but the layer stacking wasn't exactly great for them either. Other problems that popped up from time to time were chunks of filament snot building up on the nozzle and then coming loose and sticking to the print. This mostly happened using PETG, and solid infill being a bit patchy on the top and bottom layers. And for this, Peopoly recommended a slicer tweak for top surface acceleration. So back to how it actually prints. This benchy was done before I tuned pressure advance for this filament, and it's pretty respectable. These compliant pliers in PLA are pretty close to flawless, the layer stacking was good and the extrusion was consistent. To test for precision and tolerance, I did this over-engineered telescope mount by Sven Brahma. These parts are in PLA and generally look quite clean, although the inconsistent layer stacking is back on some parts. This model required a lot of support material. I used the built-in slicer profile settings, and these did an effective job but weren't too hard to remove. Everything went together very nicely, with precise fitment and all of the printed threads working exactly as intended without any post-processing. For PETG, I printed this whole Cateran Mark II guitar, which I have a dedicated video on. Once calibrated, most of the prints were quite clean. And again, the accuracy and clearances were spot on as the pieces slotted together perfectly. I originally printed the blue parts from carbon fiber filled PETG, and this turned out quite clean as well. Although, as you can see, more top layers were needed for infill on the standard profile. I fixed that for the follow-up pieces, which looked much better. Some more retraction tuning is needed for this filament, just to clean up some of the surfaces. Peopoly's glass-filled ABS also printed quite nicely. Extrusion is uniform and there's a nice texture on most of the surfaces. Again, further retraction tuning would help to clean up these edges. For carbon-filled nylon, I had to start by modifying an ABS profile. This got me in the ballpark, but as you can see, a lot more tuning would be required to get the best out of this material, and it would be nice if Peopoly included a slicer profile to do the heavy lifting here. It's worth noting that I had jams from the nylon escaping the filament path until I slowed down the max flow rate to 10 mm cubed per second. So it wasn't a surprise when I had to limit the feed rates for TPU as well. Again, 10 mm cubed per second seemed to be the safe target. This was not only reliable but yielded pretty attractive prints. So now let's evaluate the printer, especially in terms of those areas we identified earlier. Let's start with the Magneto X's suitability for engineering style 3D printing. Let's quickly work our way through this checklist. Firstly, we need the hot end to be able to reach a temp high enough. The Magneto X can go to 300 degrees, so no problems for most filaments. We need a nozzle that can handle glass or carbon-filled abrasive filaments. Magneto X nozzles are hardened steel, so another tick. We need a suitable bed material, and I don't think the Magneto X has this. It comes with a textured PEI sheet and a glue stick. Filaments like PETG will wear this surface, and there's a good chance it'll rip chunks as well. For the single PETG print I did on this surface, it was very hard to remove some of it, even after the bed had completely cooled down. For the rest of my testing, I used a Garolite sheet from VPS Data and a carbon fiber base from Wham Bam. I would recommend either of these as a better option, especially when paired with an adhesive like Dimafix. Some filaments require an enclosure to stop them from warping. For the Magneto X, the full enclosure is a $210 option. It is now a very nice fit without any gaps. With the extruder at 270 and the bed at 100, there was enough heat generated to maintain a stable 50 degrees Celsius, and that prevented any warping for me, even on really large parts. If you're engineering, you need a printer with precision and repeatability. All of my test projects for this were a pass, with nice, snug, precise fitment. And finally, engineering parts should have sufficient interlayer strength. With the enclosure, this one's going to be a tick as well. And I did test a sacrificial piece in PLA, which required a surprising amount of force to break. So apart from the bed, which you could use if you didn't want to buy anything else, I'd say engineering 3D printing is a yes, but there is one more thing to discuss. A recent video from Nathan Builds Robots highlighted the potential safety risk of carbon-filled filaments. Partly in response to this, Joseph Prusha posted on the 3D printing Reddit showing the data for their own filament safety testing. I've linked it so you can read it, but the summary is that for skin contact, as long as the right type of fibers are used, it shouldn't pose any danger. So I asked Peopoly about their filament, and they said theirs was also safe, and any future expansion will have safety testing like what Prusha did. The other key area is whether this is a JustWorks printer, and I think it's pretty clear from my experience and for those that were early adopters that it's currently not. Peopoly have told me they're going to be improving and expanding their slicer profiles, and that should cut down on the need for users to conduct so much calibration themselves. After tuning, this printer is capable of making quite nice looking parts. I don't think there's anything mechanically wrong with the printer, it just needs some more optimization. And I know from when I surveyed the community that the percentage of people who don't want to do any slicer tuning themselves is actually quite small. So if you're considering this printer, think about what category you might fit into. The other part of this is that the hardware has been frequently updating, at least while I've had the printer. Upgraded parts have been sent for free to customers, but again, not everyone wants to spend time working on their printer, so think about what category you fit into. Documentation and access do make this a pretty good printer to work on, but just keep in mind if you have an enclosure, that's an extra layer of things to worry about if you need good access to the insides. And also, the built-in camera is fantastic until at least the sun goes down, and then it's pretty useless, so a future mod for me will be adding internal LED strips. Peopoly actually have a pretty active blog, so if you want to know more about what's been updated and what's still to come, please follow the link and have a read. Despite my qualms, there's actually quite a lot that this printer does do well. It can print quite fast, in line with other modern machines, and when the slicer profiles are tuned properly, the quality is definitely there. The nozzle touching ABL worked well for me, giving me reliable first layers. The filament runout system, once updated, worked a treat. The clipper screen interface is a joy to use, like it always is, and some quality of life features, like those manual filament load and unload buttons, are welcome too. With mainsail and clipper, we have a webcam and Wi-Fi right out of the box, but we also have the ability to customize as we see fit, and that includes full access to the operating system in case you want to delve a little deeper. The part cooling fans are loud, but if you do get the enclosure, it makes a big difference to the nearby volume. Speaking of volume, the build volume is tremendously useful. It is a big printer though, so just make sure you have the physical room to fit it. Finally, there is an upgrade path on the way for things like IDEX, so if you're looking to scale up, this may become a possibility. Look, this printer has a lot of strengths and a lot of capability, but it's just not going to be for everyone, because at this stage at least, it does require a certain level of commitment and tinkering. As always, however, you should check out multiple reviews to see if my experience is isolated or typical of what others have found. Please also head down to the comment section and let me know what you think of Peopoly's Magneto X. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy 3D printing. G'day, it's Michael again. If you liked the video, then please click like. If you want to see more content like this in future, click subscribe and make sure you click on the bell to receive every notification. If you really want to support the channel and see exclusive content, become a patron. Visit my Patreon page. See you next time.